Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the webinar of Simpson today. This is our second webinar in our webinar series, and today we want to tell you everything about get pricing insights and learn. We are completely live today on YouTube and LinkedIn, so if you have any questions, you can ask them there. Welcome everyone. We're happy that you attend, and in the next 45 minutes, we would like to tell you everything about the importance of data analytics, the key questions in pricing, and the right insights you can get with it. But let's first set the stage with some wisdom. One of the famous quotes in data analytics is from William Edwards Deming. William was an American professor and statistic. He created a methodology for managers to transform their business effectiveness based on data. And it's already in the past century. So 60, 70 years ago, he was already the forerunners of the Six Sigma methodology. And one of his famous quotes is that without data, you're just another person with an opinion. And what he means is that you really should include data into your decision making. Because if you don't do that, you act on a risk, because you can act on false assumptions or on biases or speculation. So that's already 60 years ago, it was already known that data was an important part of the decision making. Another thought is from McKinsey. They did research in the effectiveness of data-driven organizations. They researched what is the differences in likability to acquire customers. And they found out that data-driven companies are 23 times more likely to acquire customers, and 6 times as likely to retain customers, and 90 times as likely to be profitable as a result. This is a big claim, of course, but we notice the same pattern in our customer base at Simpson, where we focus really on optimizing the margin. And we see if customers use our platform and use it to optimize their prices, they can increase their margins between 3 and 7%. This is what you can see in the next slide. So as a conclusion already, we can see that adopting this data-drivenness and AI in marketing and sales is really effective and can lead you to an increase in margin and revenue. So why is this webinar and why are we doing this? We want to help you if you are a pricing and sales or category manager, if you're currently making your pricing decision based upon gut feeling or static spreadsheets. This webinar is really for you. From our experience, we know that it can take a lot of time and effort to get the right insights and get the right data. So in this webinar, we would like to show you how you can get the right insights based on the pricing data you have in your company. These webinars can also be for CXOs, which are aware of a lack of skills in the company to make your company data-driven or to manage your prices properly. You're looking for smart tools that can help your organization more data-driven or to grow in revenue and margin. And in this webinar, we will handle all the key questions you might have as a CXO, how to solve them within your pricing process or within your company. So in this webinar, we have a couple of subjects we would like to discuss. First, we discuss why pricing analytics are so important. This is what Vincent Geidink will tell you everything about. After that, we will discuss the key questions in pricing for C-level, but also for operational management. We will briefly discuss the pricing and data maturity model. We did it also in the past webinar, but right now we will show you how it works with pricing insights. And we give you an overview about how to get a quick start with pricing analytics. And last but not least, we will answer your questions. As I already said, we are live on YouTube and LinkedIn. On LinkedIn gives us the opportunity, if you're joining the event, to answer questions. And by the end of the webinar, we can go to the questions. And discuss where you're currently dealing with in the pricing process. My name is Arjen Oosthoek. I'm one of the co-founders of Simpson. Started Simpson 4 years ago. And right now I want to give the floor to Vincent Geidink, Director of Simpson.
Thanks, Arjen, for this great introduction. So today I will take over the floor of Arjen and I will go to my first part of the talk I want to have with you today. So I'm focusing on two levels, and the first two levels I want to discuss with you is what are the strategies you can execute to optimize the performance of your business. So if you look at Simpson, how we looked at the results that companies can achieve is that we had to make a decision in can you make an operation more lean or can you have more control about the pricing power. And what we see based on results and research that has been done is that if you run a lean operation and you would execute the strategy, and the impact on the financial results, and this also, of course, it's something what McKinsey already investigated, is that the impact could be 1.5 to 2% in the start in the first result phase of this operation. But if you look towards pricing power, the investment to, of course, get results out of pricing power, you have to have a great data position. So that's also why you want to have insights and learn about it. But once you have obtained this position, then we see that the results are between 6 and 8%. But then, of course, is of course a much larger impact. But what we eventually define is that, of course, if you are able to run a lean operation in combination with knowing how you can control your pricing power, then you are really on a sweet spot in getting your financial results on the top-notch level. So if we look at a lot of companies that we assist today, I would say that 90% of the companies that start using Simpson have a more static position about their pricing than they, of course, do when they are working with Simpson. So what do we see in a static position with the companies who enter at Simpson is that they have 3 different ways of setting their prices. The first one that we see is that they use Excel and that they have like these macros in Excel sheets and they calculate prices through the Excel sheets. This is, of course, static because you have to fill in new data information if you want to increase the numbers and the outputs of the sheet. But what we also see is that the macros over time the knowledge of the macros isn't transferred that often. So at a certain point, these sheets are used, but not everyone understands what's taking place in the calculations. Next step that we see is that still a lot of decisions are made based on gut feeling. So we have professionals in a certain type of field that have a lot of experience, and based on their gut feeling, they also know what they can do with the pricing level. So this is, of course, very important, and the feeling that these persons have with the market tells us a lot about behavior that could be expected. So it's not something we want to waste, but it is, of course, not a methodology based on science to make these choices. And finally, we see just manual repetitive tasks. What it means as much is that they would buy a certain level of inventory, they calculate a certain level of cost, and they would just place a standard markup on top of those costs to sell the products into the market. So all these 3 positions lead to the information, and this information, you get insights out of it, and you make decisions upon those insights. And these are normally kind of guided by management models. So that there are certain models developed by a business or used by a business then to execute these decisions, what then lead to a result, what in our case often is the price setting of your products. So if you want to move from your current scenario to the scenario where you have a more dynamic position, you want to increase the information position that you have. So what we do, for instance, at Simpson is that we increase and enrich your data position with the 3 values that we just discussed, so the Excel, the gut feeling, and the manual repetitive tasks. And on top of it, we have new or other data sources that we also include. So we source more internal data. So we really are going to subtract, for instance, regions. Where are you selling? What are your margin levels? How many customers sold which product at what time? So we really are collecting all the data around a sale, what you host internally in one of your systems, for instance, an ERP system. Then the next step that we do is that we also look at external factors. So what external data can we use to see if there are significant influences on your prices? We will also, of course, collect competitor data. So if you are in the field where it's possible to source competitor data to see how they are priced and how you are priced, to get a great idea and position of that, then we use that information source as well. And finally, we also look at the positioning of your products. What type of quality is your product made of? Is it a high-end brand, or do you want to serve like the lower end of the market? And also with all these different positionings of the products and how the product is made, etc., we make a better position for your company to make decisions upon. So all this data is accessed in your company, and then we make it, of course, readable and interpretable so that you can really do something with the data sources that you have and that you can learn about it. So this creates, of course, a new information position, actually exact same thing as what we discussed earlier. So this information position is now enriched with new data, and you have new learning, so you have more dynamics in your decision possibilities that you can make. So this, of course, needs new models because you have a lot of more information to make decisions about. And then finally, of course, these results in new prices, and these prices can then be used to reassess this whole process again. And if we then go to the future position where, in our case, where Simpson works with, hyperlearning is becoming the standard in your business. We have this whole process, but what we also do is that we build algorithms per product to really optimize these products for any type of situation that you are dealing with, and that you can instantly react on market behaviors who are relevant for the sales of your products. So what we do is we look at events that also take place. We add extra data sources to the products that we are measuring and that we are supporting, of course. These data sources can just be for test runs, but can also be that we already figured out that they have a significant influence. And then we set up new AI models, and we validate and configure these models. So we are constantly retesting kind of hypothesis to see which elements are of significant influence. Of course, this then leads to even further increased information precision, and we are measuring more than just sales, right? So a lot of data points are taken into consideration. Of course, this then leads to new decisions, and here is also where we train the model. So if we make new decisions, we incorporate those in the models that we build. And the management can then help experiment or bring new ideas in to further optimize these models. And eventually, this leads then again, of course, to new results, and this loop is done over and over again. And here you really see is that the combination of human knowledge and machine knowledge and all the variables that we are dealing with are incorporated in one model, and we are constantly learning and incorporating these changes into the model. So in general, what are then the 3 steps to become a hyperlearning organization in pricing? Is that first we start to analyze the current position that you have. What's most often a bit of static positioning. Then we will move to more dynamic positioning, where we can already use some extra data sources to enrich your position. And finally, of course, in the future, we will set up your organization to have a hyperlearning loop. That means that we have a continuously impact or income of new data, what trains your model and even starts optimizing your business on all aspects that it is dealing with. So if we look at from a system perspective, how it would look like, then we see here a visualization of that. On the left side, we see the system data, the external data, and the competitor data. So we see different data sources that are taken into account and where we take data from to make, of course, our analysis. This is done through the connection with our API. So we will pull in the data out of these sources. Then it's stored in our AI training center. So in the smart center, we use the scientific models that we have already developed. And then in this smart system, of course, we are constantly reprocessing this data to see if we can optimize the model. But of course, every model per business is different. And we know that a lot of domain knowledge is stored inside a business with persons who are already working there for years. So what we do is that we have an option to configure the outcome in the models based on the experience that the people, the employees have who are already working for a long time in the industry. So that is the part where the human interaction takes place with the machine setup. And then the output, of course, is always measured based on quality indicators to see if we are really can make a difference. and then eventually the new data that is used to make the new setup in sales is going to an export API. Through the export API, you can see different results. So it can be a price list with optimized prices for your products, but you can also eventually have a report with insights on all your products and results that are taking place, and options that you have to build, for instance, also scenarios that could work for you in the future. So in general, what we of course want to know why pricing analytics are so important and what you can do with these insights. But if we look at the 5 or 6 biggest benefits that we found in the market, is that if you have serious insights on how your sales are taking place and which regions you are selling and how you are performing, is that we see that you have more insights in acquiring customers. So you can start building strategies upon those ones that are most effective for you. We see that we can optimize pricing for value. So we can really measure when something is in a trend or in a hype situation, that you can really monetize on certain products and services that you're selling into the market, but where you weren't aware of in the beginning, or maybe later then a system would detect it for you. We also see quick wins, of course, so you can identify those. We also see that if you sell through multiple channels, which channels are for you the most profitable in which time frame. So this also means that we know how much marketing budget you can spend on different channels you are working with. And finally, of course, if you look at, for instance, that we get insights on the seasonality of your products, you can even plan promotions. So if you have certain months that you're selling less, then based on the insights that we have gained, we can also say in these months you should do a promotion to upscale your sales, or even start trying to sell more if you have certain months where you are already selling high, but there's even more potential in the market for you. So if you look in general, of course, we have this top line in a business, for instance, the CEO who wants to have some questions answered if you start working with a system as Simpson. And one of the questions we often see is that where C-level is dealing with is that deciding on prices is not always a united decision made in an industry. So if you have a system that gives you and generates data where everyone has the same insights, it's easier to have a united decision about the price setting of the organization. Furthermore, we see that it is very important to steer on goals. So how do you steer as a CEO on the maximum potential of your business if you don't really know what the maximum potential is? So this is also one of the questions we try to answer with Simpson, to give CEOs an idea what the potential is of their business case that they have at hand based on the sell information that they already collected over the years. Finally, the question that we try to answer and to help with is that how can and CEO steer the organization towards the adoption of big data in AI? Because I think in general, we all know that technology already has proven that this will be the next step for an organization. And if you look at the adoption of machine learning and AI, there are like 3 levels of challenges an organization have to deal with. I will discuss them high over. So what we see in general is that the first encounters that a business have is that you need a certain level of skills in an organization to adapt and work with AI and machine learning and to have a data-driven approach. And of course, in an organization, you have to have focus on data and collecting clean data and not corrupted data or mixed data. So we have to make steps in these fields as well. And then finally, of course, there should be also kind of governance over a new system like this before you can really start working with it. Furthermore, we also still see a lot of fear in the unknown. So AI is not something that is commonly known. So what we also are trying is to explain it very well what is happening in the AI system to gain confidence of those who work with the system. And finally, we also see that companies think it's very difficult to find a certain starting point for their organization to start running one of these projects and then also measure the success of it so that you can decide on how much money you want to spend on funding a project like this. So the next C-suite position that I want to discuss is the C-suite position of a CFO. So a CFO, for instance, wants to know which part of the assortment he can use to achieve certain KPIs, right? So you want to do a quick selection and want to know on which products have, for instance, great data quality. And from out the great data quality, you can maybe measure the elasticity. So if you have to achieve certain margin levels, or you have to achieve certain financial KPIs, that you can decide on which part of your portfolio you would like to work with to achieve such a situation. Next to that question, we also see it's hard for businesses to make choices to decide when they want to optimize revenue and when they want to optimize for margin. So in one case, of course, in the revenue case, you focus on gaining more market share. So how do I increase my potential in the market, and how do I really get that part of the market in? And if you have achieved a certain market share where you are okay with, then of course, how can you monetize then this market share, and how do you play with your margins so that you get enough liquidity in a company to go to your next innovation trial or start experimenting with new business models? So these are very valid questions, but it is very hard to decide if you don't have insights on which moment you should switch between these strategies. And finally, of course, you want to know what types of impact does a change in your pricing model lead to, right? So what does it mean for profits? When do I change this pricing model? And do I even want to change this pricing model? So you want to build scenarios. And in the video that we made, we can show you how building such a strategy works. So what you see here is an overview of the interface of how you build a scenario. And if you click on building a scenario, then in the down line, you see 6 steps you can go by to set up your scenario. So you can give the scenario a name that, of course, suits the strategy or the scenario that you want to think about. In this case, the top 5. So we take the top 5 margin products to have a quick selection on who is bringing in the most margin, so that you can maybe decide to do something with it. But of course, you can also optimize for revenue, or for things that have costs, or the ones who sell the most quantity. So there are a lot of possibilities to make a setup of a scenario to your preference to make a great next step. Then on top of it, of course, you can select in which periods do we want to run this scenario. There are certain months, so you want to do it for a whole year. You can even choose in the system to deselect, of course, some of these options, but you can also have different regions if you are selling in different countries. Of course, you have different products, different brands. So, of course, you just want to select those brands where you think you have the most possibility with, or deselect those who you think are not so relevant. And once you have set up this scenario, then you can determine your products that are used here for. And then eventually you can also decide on how much percentage change in the price you accept, and if you want to deselect outliers. And these outliers, deselection is very important if you have like a skewed data set, that you can center it more, and that you have you only use results that are within the normal set acceptance of the reach. And furthermore, you have the possibility to adjust for inflation, something that we are dealing with today a lot. Furthermore, this is the case where you can see that you can optimize for margin or for revenue, market share of more liquidity, and you tell, of course, the period you want to optimize for. Is it in a week or in a month? And then finally, if you are done, then you can even do a further selection to zoom in even deeper on the data sets that is available, and what was the outcome of this selection, so that you really can work with a deeply selected set of a scenario. So eventually that results in the top 5. Here we see 5 products. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And these products are the top 5 margin makers. We can organize those based, for instance, on different KPIs, data quality, or even on margin levels, to know which products are best to work with, so that you know if something has bad data quality, you rather work with those who have a better data quality. Yes, and then based on the selection that you make, you can decide which actions you want to take, and you have already a prediction in how you can set up your next step. So in this case, we're going back to the managing role, and I would like to give the floor back to Arjen.
Thank you, Vincent, for the clear introduction and discussing the key questions for the CEO and the CFO. As you can see in this graph, is that pricing touches a lot of different roles in the organization. Can be C-level, can be also the operational management level. I will quickly go on to discuss the other management levels, such as the pricing manager, e-commerce manager, or category manager. Because pricing manager, you're of course responsible for managing the pricing strategy and executing the whole pricing process. And as an e-commerce manager, you're not specifically responsible for pricing, but it could be that you're really interested in the online positioning of your product compared to competitors. And with a category manager, you're of course looking for new ways of promoting the product or looking for managing the category and where can you increase revenue, where can you increase margin. So you want to make a lot of decisions about what is the potential of each product and what kind of products do overlap with other products or cannibalize with other products. So I want to go quickly through some questions you could have if you are optimizing your margin. You could have questions like, what could be our impact on revenue if you increase our margins with X%? It's a bit related to what Vincent already discussed. It's making a scenario so you can, based on all the data you have, Simpson offers you the opportunity to make scenarios to see what's the impact in your revenue and margin. But also when handling thousands of products and customers in different regions, what price strategy would be best? Other questions you could have is what products are inelastic and elastic. In the previous webinar, we discussed the topic of inelasticity and elasticity. It's the amount of demand that will change due to a price change. And when it's a high number is pretty high, we say that's elastic. So it's really price sensitive. And when the score is low, we say that's inelastic. So the demand will change less than the price will change. If we go to the next slide, I will show you how it works in Simpson. So one of the cool features in Simpson is that you can study each product in terms of data quality, but also in terms of impact. So the scores you saw on top refer to the data quality. If it's green, the quality is good, and when the score is red or orange, the quality can be improved. And what you see here is that you can check each data point. You can see what has been sold in a different week of the year. The red signs are the order lines which are ignored by the algorithm because these are outliers. And what you can do in each product analysis is that you can change the business rules. So if your price is too high or too low, you can make the limits and the bandwidth strict or wider so that you can experiment different prices and based on the criteria you would like to see. And this is what a pricing manager could do if you want to have an in-depth analysis about a particular product. So you can here ignore data points, but you can also select different data points as you see here. And also check with your experience, is this right? Is the data correct? Is the data clean enough to use for the optimization? And when you're satisfied with the data, you can do a run again. And when you change the business rules, you can do a run again to see, okay, what is the new optimization based on a stricter bandwidth or based on an increase in margin. On top, you see the scores of the elasticity and the data quality. The data quality score is here 0.86, which is quite high. We give also insights about how you can improve this data quality. So the data quality is based upon the variance of your data, but also based upon the quality. So if the data score is too low, we give you also insights about how you can increase the score with selling more or with experimenting with your prices more. So this is one of the cool features Simpson offers you. So yeah, this is how our product analysis works. Other questions you could have when you are positioning your product is about what products are price sensitive compared to my competitors. What we see in the market is that most of the customers take a decision upon certain products which we call key value items. And if you change those products, if you increase those products, if the price of those products are increased more than the competitors, the risk is that you lose customers. So you want to know which are the key value items and what should be the optimal price in relation to my positioning, so that you don't lose customers for these specific key value items, because other items are bought together with these items. So this is pretty important to have a good benchmark in the market. So what is your price positioning and how can you price automatically? We offer the opportunity in Simpson to track customer behavior, but also to track competitor prices on Google. So based on your EN code or manufacturing code, we can see what's the current price in the market, what is your price positioning, and if you have a clear idea about what should be your position in the market, can be second in the market or can be most expensive in the market, or for some products you could want to have the lowest price, then we can also price automatically. In our next webinar, we will give you a more detailed insight in how you can use competitive pricing into your price process. But I leave it up to here. Key questions in relation to assortment. As a category manager, you're responsible for managing your assortment, but also to discover a new kind of products which fit the assortment and don't cannibalize with other products or could overlap with other products. So to answer these questions, you can make scenarios and you can quickly see what is the optimal price compared to another category or related to a certain brand or related to a certain customer group. This is what you can do. You can also answer questions related to the category management matrix. So what are your winners in your assortment? What are your traffic builders? What are your underperformance? And so these kind of categories you can detect with Simpson. And based on that, you can build several pricing strategies to optimize your margin or your revenue. In the next video, you can see how it works in detail. This is the pricing management dashboard. If you enter, you can build your strategies. But if you click on scenarios, we will do that right now. You can see how a scenario setup works for a certain category. So you give the category or you give the scenario a name. Let's give it a name. Today, let's give it all products. And then you click on next, and we select a certain list. So we can select the top in revenue, we can select the top in margin, or the top in order lines, quality, or average price, really based upon your preferences. But we can also select a different time period or certain month. If you want to see the seasonality patterns, you can select different months and also compare it with each other. You can select product groups, you can select customer groups, you can select brands, and based on that, you can select your own list. And if you've made your own selections, you can create this list. So you see this is the input of your list of your top 100 in a certain brand or top 100 in a certain category. And then we do the analysis for you. So you can see, okay, based on these top 100 lists in a certain category, we see what performs best in margin. You see that here in the blue dots. So you can see what are the best performing products in this category for my margin or for my revenue. But you can also see the outliers here. So we give with the lines, the green lines, we give you an overview about what are the scores for each individual product based on margin, based on data quality, based on revenue, so that you can also see what are potential outliers, what are really high performance, and what are products that deserve more attention to put them in promotion or to increase the revenue of this product. So by selecting your list, we give you insights in how you can improve the performance of your category. And also scenarios offer you the possibility to change the scenarios if you want to have a change in the selection of your products. This is always possible. And this is a full list of data Simpson produces. So you see here what is the optimal price, you see the data quality, you see the price elasticity, you see the number of data points we include, and you see also if the data quality is good enough for optimization. So this is how you can use it, how you can use Simpson in optimizing your assortment. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, so gave you some insights in how you can use Simpson as a manager, how you can use it to optimize your margin, how you can optimize your category and your positioning. And right now, I want to give the floor to Vincent again. He will give you more information about the pricing maturity model.
Yes, thank you, Arjen. Yeah, as discussed in the last webinar, we discussed our pricing maturity model, and here we see 4 steps that we have identified where you could position yourself as a business and what your next step could be. So today we are discussing the insights and learn. So this is the first step if you want to achieve dynamic pricing in the end. So insights and learn is, of course, what we also discussed today is that we are going to look to the data sources that are available in your company, make those data sources accessible, and start visualizing the data that you have so that you get better insights and that you can make choices and decisions based on the insights and the learnings that you have made. Then if you have achieved this position, what 26% of the market is working with, so 26%, a quarter of every business, 1 in 4 that we meet is in a position of insights and learn. The majority is in run prediction for competitive pricing and insights and learn. So that's the second step in this data maturity model. So in that model, you are already scanning the market and also use competitor data to position your products, but it's mostly used by external sources and not that much insight, and it's for sure not a combination of those two. But this is where the majority of the market is. So majority of the market is aware of their surroundings in their competitive field and uses some data of themselves and of course some data from the competition to decide on price positioning and how to deal with it. And if we look at the third position that you want to achieve is then we go to the pricing engine. So here we are already taking into account several dynamics, also on your cost structure, so mapping of cost structures. And if, for instance, transportation is climbing because of the rise of gas prices, for instance, and fuels, then your selling prices will increase automatically as well, because eventually you will have higher costs and you don't want to lose any margin. So you want to match those increases in costs to your sales prices, but also take into account how your competitors are behaving and also what other insights can we include in setting up your pricing. Then eventually, of course, you get to the fourth position, and it's the desired position to achieve, is that you can apply genius dynamic pricing. And this is that you really start optimizing based on economical trends, based on economical behavior, based on the sensitivity of the prices, but also based on the data quality that you are collecting and product positioning. So in this final position, we take actually almost anything in account that is possible, and we are constantly measuring if there are any patterns to other variables that could have significant influence on your price. So if you look at the data input for the pricing insight, so what do we use? You see here a kind of globe, it looks like, but this is a kind of how the heart of a AI and machine learning brain works. So what we see here, a connection of all types of systems, and we collect the internal, the external data, and of course the product quality. Here you see a lot of the, I will wait for this one. So here you see the internal data, sales prices, margin, cost prices. If you look at external data, then you see here the economy, energy prices, competitor data, and finally the product positioning, product groups, competition. And this is how all these points get interconnected. And sometimes there are dependencies towards each other. Sometimes they have no influence at all. But in this machine, of course, we get even smarter by the day because we run a lot of hypothesis testing, and then eventually we know which connections are most valuable and are used to really set your pricing up for success. So in the beginning, we discussed the obstacles of starting to work with machine learning and AI. And what I wanted to give you an overview of is how we try to overcome these obstacles within a business by using Simpson. So the first obstacle that we saw is that there's a difficulty in skills, right? So that your staff need to have the right skills to start using machine learning and artificial intelligence. So what we did with Simpson is we built a drag and drop pricing strategy builder. And in this drag and drop menu, algorithms are built in kind of modular pieces, and you can just set up your own strategy with parameters in them that are adjustable according to your business needs. So eventually, you should have an idea of how you want to set up pricing, but you don't have to be a data scientist and you don't have to be a software engineer to achieve custom data algorithms that work for you. So that is one of the actions Simpson took to overcome this obstacle. 52% has an issue with the cost of adoption cost. If you have to hire new employees and you have to invest in new technology, etc., that is quite some investment you have to make. So what Simpson did is we work with data import. If you have clean data, you can be up and running in 2 weeks. You don't have to hire expensive personnel. It's all kind of covered in our system, and together with us, we built for you on a level of a pricing manager. You can execute the system that becomes every day smarter for your organization and set these prices up right. So high investments are in this case excluded. The cost of adapting into the operational process. So what we did here is that we made these parameters within the strategy so that we really start collecting the domain knowledge of the business in the strategies that we build. So this is convenient for the employees because the level of how to adopt a system and to work with this is already incorporated, because they quickly understand, hey, this is my knowledge and this is my feeling and this is why I did based on gut feeling these prices. And because they know where they now can express these feelings in numbers and locations, then they already start learning to work with the system. So this incorporation in the operational process is in this case are kind of encouraged, and we see also we see this back in the results that the adoption of Simpson only takes overall a couple of weeks before it's really used and run by different employees. And the last one is the lack of skills among existing staff. So this is already what we also said in the first round, but it is also a summary, I think, for all the aspects that we already have discussed, because it is so easy to use and we did a drag and drop and we are using the domain knowledge of the business, and you don't have to be a data scientist or a developer to work with the system. Anyone can work with Simpson. If they just know how they want to organize their pricing, then we can execute the strategy for you and help you with extra insights to become even a smarter pricing organization. So, of course, we understand that if you have heard this Pricing and Insights webinar, that you would be interested in schedule a demo. So this can be done in two ways. Here in the bottom, you see a line. It says go to simpson.com/demo, and you can just schedule a demo there. And then we will see each other in the next meeting, because then I will give you a personalized demo through the booking you have made. And of course, there's another way to connect, is that you scan the QR code that you see here in the screen. You will get the invitation to my LinkedIn, and of course, then we can schedule via the chat and a meeting together, and to see how we can find each other there and match the agendas. So then we move towards the questions and the answers, of course, that we want to give. So if there are any questions, please use the chats on LinkedIn and YouTube and the other channels that are available to shoot in some questions. We're happy to answer them.
Cool. In the meantime, I saw already some questions popping up. One of the question was, what does Simpson default user look like? Is it more C-level or a manager? I think we previously discussed the previous roles, Vincent.
Yeah.
The CFO, the CEO, but also the pricing manager, category manager, and the e-commerce manager. And to answer that question, to give a first insight on that question is, it really depends. I think most of the users are on a management level. So they start giving us the data and they analyze the data based on the responsibilities they have. but it's often used in conversations or meetings with the board. So if a CFO wants to know how to change the pricing model or how to increase the margin, you see that already scenarios are made or analysis already made by the pricing manager or the e-commerce manager or responsible manager. So you see very broad stakeholders which could benefit from Simpson, but most of the time it's the manager that is the main user of Simpson. Another question is, what skills are needed to use Simpson? Vincent, can I give this one to you?
Sure. Yeah. Yes. As what we said in the obstacles. Of course, we have an onboarding program. So if you have no skills in pricing at all, we can help you with that. So we have tutorials to explain you how our pricing strategy builder works. And how you can generate new setups. And if we look at the data, so if you want to gain more knowledge about the data position that you have over the products that we can give you insights over, then each data position that is visible in Simpson is also explained. So, for instance, as an example, if you want to know which products have, for instance, poor data and where you want to work on to achieve a better data position, then you can just go to the data quality indicator and you click on it, and then if you click on it once, you have the top data positions of the products on top of. Then you see those first, and if you click another time, you see the ones who don't have that excellent data position, and then you directly know which one you can work with, and you can make a CSV out of each query that you run on the database. So if you want to have these insights and then visualize and then like stored somewhere so you have quick access to it or discuss it with your colleagues or send it around through your email, you can just download those out of Simpson and have discussions about it and move forward on it.
Cool. I don't see any other questions yet. Maybe later more questions will pop up in the chat. Sometimes it has some delay, but yeah, in the meantime, if you have questions later, I think there's here a link below to schedule a demo. So if you want to have questions that you don't want to talk or ask in this chat because of privacy reasons, or you can always ask them in a private demo with us. Also, this webinar is visible for replay, so you can also watch it back at the time you prefer. And we are live on LinkedIn and YouTube. I think also want to invite you to take a look on our YouTube channel, because we are currently uploading a lot of videos about the new product features of Simpson, and it gives the videos give explanation of what you can do with the features and how it can help you achieve your goals in pricing. Yeah, if there are no questions more, I think we have a few minutes left for the next slide. It's about our upcoming events. So this was our second webinar in our webinar series. On the 22nd of September, we have a next webinar. It's about run predictions. So we will explain you everything about how you can run predictions. So predict what is the optimal price for marginal revenue with all the data you have. On the 29th of September, we will go to Utrecht in the Netherlands for the Price is Right event. We do that together with our partner of Flow Resulting. We have all kinds of pricing experts across different industries, from insurance to retail to manufacturing. It will be a very interesting event on the topic of pricing. And we still have a couple of tickets left for giveaway. So yeah, please contact Vincent or me if you want to be there. On the 27th of October, we have an event for the price engine. We will tell you everything about how Simpson can be used as a price engine to automate your prices. And on the 24th of November, it's far away, we're already in winter then, we have a webinar about the competitive pricing. So we tell you everything about the possibilities Simpson offers for getting all the data about competitors and also act on it. Yeah, if there are no further questions, we would like to thank you for your attendance. We will close the webinar with a quote. Yeah, it's a very cliche. Albert Einstein, I think most of the people know this quote. We can solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. It's of course very cliche, but we want to trigger you with outside the box thinking. Yeah, it's still a very effective way to solve problems or to get new ideas. And we want to invite you to use Simpson in a demo to get triggered by new ideas and to solve problems in today's pricing process. So the new way of thinking, we would invite you to experience that with Simpson. Yeah, on behalf of Simpson, on behalf of Vincent, I really want to thank you for your time, and we will look forward to see you in real life. Have a nice day.
Right.